Imagine being surrounded by women who love you for money. That was Ray's reality until one day he got tired of fake love, moved out of the comfort of his home, disguised himself, and worked for his boss, where he was humiliated, mocked, and rejected for his simple appearance and lack of status. How did he end up with the woman his boss has already claimed in his mind and boasted to his friends? This is not just a story of possession, but a tale of betrayal, true love, shared secrets. Showing love is not bought with money or wealth. It is proven with humility, sincerity, and patience. Those who value true love find happiness money cannot buy. Once upon a time in the city of Lagos, there lived a young man, Ray Adeleke, the son of Chief Shola Adeleke. He had everything most men only dreamt of. At 28, he was heir to a vast empire that stretched across Africa. Oil blocks that pumped millions daily, estates in Lagos, Abuja, and Accra, transport companies with fleets of buses and tankers, and international investments that whispered his father's name in boardrooms from London to Dubai. Wherever he went, doors opened. Wherever he spoke, people listened. His father was a titan of business, and Ray, his only child in Nigeria, was the crown prince of that empire. Cars lined the garage, designer suits filled his wardrobes, and servants bowed whenever he walked through the mansion's marble halls. Yet in the middle of this golden life, Ray carried an emptiness heavier than chains. He had tasted wealth, but what he longed for was love, real love, the kind that was blind to money, and embraced a man's soul before his possessions. And that was the one thing his money could not buy. From the outside, it seemed absurd. Women who knows him threw themselves at him everywhere he went. At parties, they smiled too brightly, laughed too quickly, and swayed closer whenever his name was mentioned. In restaurants, their eyes lingered not on him but on the keys of the car he had driven, on the watch gleaming on his wrist, on the card that paid the bill without hesitation. Many told him, "I love you," but Ray had learned to read the language of their eyes on the bag, know the heart. He once tried to test this by going out in a simple shirt and jeans, leaving his luxury car at home. The lady he met that evening by name Winter just moved into the city months ago. Winter got employed at a company opposite the restaurant where Ray had come to forget his pain in search of the right one. Ray sighted her from a distance as the beautiful, elegant lady walked in. Expecting the best, as he has never been lucky to at least get a lady he meets his criteria for marriage, Ray said in his mind, "Could there be miracle?" After a moment, he moved to her table and asked, "Hello, beautiful one. Can I join you?" Winter glanced at his outfit and said, "See, young man, I have zero tolerance for poverty-stricken men. Quality attracts quality, and you obviously don't fit in. Winter is my name. I go for men willing to alleviate my family from poverty." "What?" Ray asked. Before he knew it, Winter stood up immediately and walked out as Ray watched in amazement. On her way out, the receptionist told her Ray's true identity. Winter hurriedly ran back to apologize, but Ray said, "That's too late," as he worked away. Each incident deepened the wound in his heart until it became unbearable. In private moments, Ray would look at his reflection in the mirror and whisper bitterly, "Why is it hard to get a woman whose love is not dependent on wealth? Do life even matter without true love?" One day, Ray confided in his closest friend, Brian. Ray and Brian had grown up together. Brian, unlike others who surrounded Ray for favor, remains one of Chief Shola's trusted staff. Brian's loyalty was unquestionable. Sitting in Ray's private study, Ray poured out his frustration. "I'm tired, Brian," he said, his voice low but trembling with suppressed pain. "Every woman I meet looks at me and sees an ATM. They don't the man, the flaws, the dreams, the heart. They only see Chief Shola Adeleke's son." Brian listened quietly, his sharp eyes studying his friend. When Ray fell silent, Brian leaned forward with a smile tugging at his lips. Brian said, "Then maybe, my brother, you've been searching in the wrong place. These Lagos ladies know you and they sniff at the gold beneath. If you want a woman who loves you for you, then hide the gold. Let them see only the man. Disguise yourself. Live like a common man. And if you truly want to be sure, we'll travel to somewhere far, to a city where no one knows your name." Ray blinked at him, stunned. "Disguise myself? Leave everything?" Brian shrugged. "What do you have to lose? If you remain here, you'll marry money hunters. If you go with me, maybe, just maybe, you'll find the one who sees your soul before your wallet." Ray could hardly sleep that night after his discussion with Brian. Brian's words echoed in his mind like a song he could not silence. He imagined himself stripped of luxury, walking the streets of a remote town, living in a simple apartment, eating at roadside canteens. The thought was terrifying yet strangely freeing. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope. Perhaps the love he craved could only be found outside the shadow of his wealth. Before morning, his decision was made. He called Brian and said, "You're right. We'll leave this city. We'll go somewhere no one knows me, and I'll live as an ordinary man until I find her." Brian laughed with satisfaction, clapping him on the back. "Then get ready, Ray. The true test of your heart begins now." And so, within days, plans were set in motion. Ray and Brian packed a small suitcase, leaving behind the glittering cars, the mansion, and the servants. They prepared to vanish into a world that had no idea who Ray truly was. The city of Aba in Abi Estate was nothing like Victoria Island, Lagos, where Ray Adeleke once woke to the hum of air conditioners and the quiet shuffle of servants. Aba woke him with the blaring horns of keek riders, the distant cries of hawkers selling bread and akara, and the clatter of hammers in the crowded markets. Here, the streets were narrow and restless, but this was exactly why Ray had come, to vanish into a place where no one knew his name or measure him by his father's empire. With Brian by his side, they quickly settled in an apartment and quickly found work at a sprawling cement company called Noble Cement Interlink, managed by an Igbo man by name Mr. Obinna Johnson, who's already in his early 40s. The warehouse supplied the city with every building material imaginable, cement stacked like small mountains, iron rods lined against the walls, heaps of shovels and head pans, buckets of paint, trowels that glinted in the sunlight. Their job was simple but back-breaking. Load cement bags for customers who came to buy. Sweat became their new signature, dust their daily companion, and laughter from mocking colleagues their daily chorus. To most customers, they were nothing but loaders. Two young men in worn-out clothes, covered in cement dust, straining under 50-kilogram bags. Most loaders who worked with them laughed and mocked at every opportunity they see, calling them amateur in the field. Ray and Brian ignored those words, knowing their stay there is just for a while. One thing was certain, they hoped to achieve their aim in no distant time. Not even Mr. Obinna could tell their mission as they gave him no reason but focused, discharging their duties well. No one suspected that Ray, the stronger of the two, with broad shoulders and six-pack muscles that bulged through his sweat-soaked shirt, was the son of Chief Shola Adeleke, billionaire oil magnate of Lagos. For weeks, Ray endured the toil quietly, refusing to break his disguise. Each day, he bent his back beneath cement bags, his palms blistered from gripping iron rods, his lungs filled with cement dust, yet he never complained. Brian, though playful by nature, shared in the suffering with good humor, often teasing Ray in Igbo pidgin as they worked. "Odogu loader, if your papa see you now, let him go faint," he would laugh, and Ray, despite the pain in his muscles, would smile faintly and say, "No loud am." But Abba was not all sweat and toil. Ray complained often when they get home to Brian. "It's been months since their arrival and up till now can't hold on to anyone," Ray said. Fate was weaving threads neither of them could see. One afternoon, under the scorching sun, a black SUV pulled up outside the warehouse. Two young women stepped out, their presence instantly commanding attention. They were sisters, Ada Hanmi and her elder sister Ifeoma. Ada was 24, a final-year nursing student at Babcock University, home on holidays to oversee her elder brother's building project. She was tall, with bright brown eyes that seemed to catch light even in the dusty warehouse, and her smile carried a warmth that softened even the harshest atmosphere. Ifeoma, on the other hand, was sharper, sterner, her eyes scanning everything with suspicion. She was called to bar 3 days ago, and Mr. Obinna, having received much patronage from them, was glad to hear the good news and so gave them a warm welcome. They made transfer for the goods they ordered as the workers at warehouse immediately scrambled to impress, rushing to help, throwing jokes in the air. Ada's gaze fell on Ray as he carried a bag of cement effortlessly onto the back of their truck. There was something about him. His sweat-drenched shirt clinging to his torso, revealing muscles carved by both wealth's gym and poverty's labor. The way his face glistened under the sun, serious yet calm, and most of all, his smile. It wasn't the rehearsed smile of a man trying to impress, but a quiet, humble smile, like someone who had found peace in hard work. Ray quickly came to the loading fee from Ifeoma as soon as they were done. Ifeoma threw the money on the floor and said to him, "Pick it up. Wouldn't want you stain my hand with those dust you have there." She stood up and entered the car, humming severally for Ada to come in, but Ada quickly picked the money from the floor as she apologized to Ray, handing it over to him with extra cash than Ifeoma had given before. Ray said thanks as Ada hurriedly joined in the car with her sister. Ada tried to talk to Ifeoma over her attitude towards the poor loader, but Ifeoma made it clear to Ada that the poor loader is a commoner and should be treated as one. That evening, as Ray and Brian got home, Ray couldn't help but ponder over Ifeoma's arrogance. "So this is what a man will keep at home?" Ray asked. "Oh, justice for men." A few days later, Ifeoma and Ada returned to the warehouse again to buy cement. This time, Ray loaded the cement bag and left, and as usual, Ifeoma threw the money at him and left. Ray stepped forward to confront her, but Brian held him back as Ada picked the money and handed it over to Ray. He hesitated, but Brian said, "Take Am, my guy." "Now you're sweat." Ray took the money, nodding with anger as he stared at Brian. Ray kept sighing the whole night as they got home, wondering how mannerless one can be, but his heart raced with a strange feeling he couldn't name as he remembered Ada. "What if Ifeoma is the reason why we are here?" Brian asked. Ray shouted, "Olamaje," meaning God forbid. Ada never stopped cautioning Ifeoma over her attitude to people since she was called to bar, yet she never listened. Sales at Noble Cement Interlink increased as Ada did return. The project demanded frequent purchases of cement, iron, rods. Each time Ada comes alone, she finds herself searching for the young loader with the quiet smile. And each time, she gave him change more on the loading fee, a small act that drew whispers from the other workers who teased Ray endlessly. "Oh boy, that fine girl Donde notice you owe," they would laugh. But Ray said nothing, keeping his feelings hidden, though inside him, a fire had begun to spark. Yet love's journey is never smooth. Among the men who frequented the Yohanmi family was Mr. Obinna Johnson, the manager of Noble Cement Interlink. Mr. Obinna has already mapped out his plan in his mind to marry from Mr. Ohanmi family. As an Igbo man of means, he has already bragged to his friends he will marry a graduate, a nurse. He believed he deserved a polished wife, someone from a wealthy family who could enhance his prestige without draining his pocket. When he heard that Ada was in her final year, he decided she fit perfectly. "She is almost ready," he boasted to his friends. "I cannot waste my money training a woman, but I must marry a graduate." To him, Ada's education was simply a free investment from her family. And from the way she bought building materials in large quantities was clear her people had wealth. As the day goes by, Ada's kindness turned to feelings. She began to grow interest in a cement loader, a man her sister dismissed without a second glance. To Ifeoma and Mr. Obinna, Ray was dust, sweat, and poor loader. Yet to Ada, Ray's sweat was not shameful. It was strength. His loyalty to his work, his humility, his rare smile, these things drew her closer even when she tried to deny it. Ifeoma noticed too, but unlike Ada, her heart hardened at the sight. Each time they visited the warehouse, she would pull Ada aside and whisper, "Stay away from that loader. Nothing good comes out of poverty-stricken men. You're from a wealthy family. Don't bring shame to us." But Ada, though respectful, could not silence the quiet song in her heart that played each time Ray lifted cement under the burning sun. And so, in the dusty yard of Noble Cement Interlink, where cement bags towered like walls and men shouted prices over the din, the seed of something powerful began to grow. Ray began to feel emotions he had long suppressed, while Ada found her heart bending toward a man society would call beneath her. Between them stood Ifeoma's scorn and Mr. Obinna's ambition, each threatening to choke the fragile spark before it could become flame. But fate had already lit the match. Neither Ray nor Ada knew it yet, but their chance meetings at the warehouse were the beginning of a story that would shake both families to their core. The morning sun over Aba was merciless, beating down on the tin roofs until Noble Cement Interlink shimmered like a furnace. Ray and Brian had been working since dawn, with their shirts already soaked with sweat, when a familiar SUV rolled through the gates. Ada and Ifeoma stepped out with their usual quiet authority, carrying bulky envelope filled with cash. Workers whispered among themselves, unsure who would be called by Mr. Obinna to arrange such money as the cashier was not around. Shortly, the air split with Obinna Johnson's booming voice. "You there," he barked, pointing at Ray. "Count the money." His tone dripped with command as though he were summoning a servant rather than a fellow man. For a brief second, Brian frowned, but Ray calmly stepped forward, collected the envelope, and crouched on the nearest table. With practiced hands, he separated the notes, his fingers moving swiftly, his eyes sharp and focused. Within minutes, the cash was stacked, arranged, and confirmed to the exact figure. Ada, who had been watching closely, widened her eyes in astonishment. "This is unbelievable," she breathed. "Ray, how did you do that so fast? Were you once a businessman? Or is there something you're not telling us?" Ray only smiled faintly, shrugging as if it were nothing, but in that moment, Ada saw more than muscles and sweat. She saw a mind sharpened beyond dust. Obinna saw it too, but unlike Ada, admiration curdled into fury. He had noticed the way Ada's eyes softened whenever Ray smiled, the way her voice brightened when she spoke to him. To Obinna, this was a threat, an insult, a crack in the wall of pride he had built around himself. A cement loader daring to steal glances with the woman he had already claimed in his mind. Never. As Ray moved into the house to load the bags, Obinna's voice thundered through the yard again. "Stop! From today, this boy will not load anything for you again." The command rang like iron. The other workers fell silent, eyes darting between Ray and Obina. Ada froze, her hand hovering in midair, her heart pounding with unspoken anger. Ifeoma, however, smirked with satisfaction. To her, Obina was simply restoring order, protecting her sister from the shame of mingling with a commoner. Ray, for his part, said nothing as he bent his head respectfully, though inside his chest a storm raged. Ada climbed into the SUV, her disappointment hidden behind tight lips. As she adjusted her bag on the seat, her small phone slipped from her lap, tumbling silently into the open gutter beside the warehouse. Neither she nor her sister noticed as the car dove away, leaving the device. Hours later, Ray stepped aside to relieve himself near the gutter. He heard a faint ringing as he approached. Curious, he bent down and spotted the glow of a phone lodged between broken blocks. Carefully, he reached in and pulled it out, dusted it clean, and pressed the answer button of the buzzing device. A female voice, anxious, crackled through the speaker. Please, that's my transaction line. Don't switch it off. I beg you, can you return it? I don't mind coming to your location right now." Ray recognized the voice instantly. His heart skipped as he agreed quietly. Just within an hour, Ada returned following the address Ray gave, her eyes lighting up the moment she saw Ray. Ada asked, "Is this where you live?" Ray said yes. "That's what I can afford to pay with the little I get." Ada was touched as she thanked him profusely, leaving the vicinity in fear. That night, Ada kept imagining Ray's condition, and before she slept, she called Ray to say thank you once more. When Ray answered, his voice was warm. Ada kept trembling with gratitude, and to show appreciation, Ada insisted in having a date with him. One evening, they met in an eatery. Ada handed a check over to Ray saying thank you. Ray was so happy, and at the same time rejected the offer. "I need nothing, Ada." "I'm fine," he said simply. Ada paused, then her tone softened into something bolder. "Then at least hug can mean a lot." When her arms wrapped around him, Ray felt the warmth of her skin, the softness of her breast pressed against his chest. For a fleeting second, ecstasy and danger mingled. Their eyes locked heavy with unspoken desire. Ada leaned in, lips parting for a kiss, but Ray pulled away abruptly, his heart pounding. "I can't," he muttered, leaving the restaurant at once. Ada sat frozen, a mix of embarrassment and thrill coursing through her veins. She was humiliated by his rejection, and at the same time elated, eager, almost desperate, to taste more of the forbidden fire that had sparked between them. From that day, their connection deepened like roots in hidden soil. Ada returned to warehouse, always wanting to see Ray. Little did she notice Ray avoiding her at every possible means. Confused and hurt, Ada confronted him one night over the phone. "Why are you avoiding me? Did I offend you?" Her voice trembled with a mix of pride and vulnerability. Ray sighed deeply before answering. "I don't want to get you into trouble. You're not meant for someone like me." Ada said, "Fine, but can I at least see you again?" Ray hesitated, but later agreed. That evening, Ada got tired of waiting, almost leaving when he finally appeared, breathless and apologetic. Her anger melted. Ada led him to a boutique, insisting he choose wares to change most of his outfit at the warehouse. "You've done so much for me," she said softly. Ray, though hesitant, accepted. When he stepped out of the fitting room, Ada's eyes lingered too long, her heart fluttering against her will. Their bond grew quickly after that, the line between gratitude and love blurring with every word, every smile, every shared secret. Ray got home that evening with every conviction. He told Brian he could no longer keep silent. He took his phone under the cover of dim lights. He confessed his intentions. "Ada, I care for you more than I should. I want you in my life." Ada's breath caught. She asked for time, promising to give him an answer soon. But when she shared her secret with Ifeoma, the older sister's fury erupted. Within days, their father was informed, and Ada was forbidden and her freedom locked behind walls of family pride and tradition. One afternoon, dressed in a crisp white senator attire, Mr. Obina arrived at Mr. Ohamez's residence with his entourage, bringing crates of expensive wine and bottles of hot drink, the traditional sign of intent. Mr. Sisi Ohami, proud of such a wealthy suitor, welcomed him warmly. "Ada, come and greet our guest," he called, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Ada obeyed, her steps heavy, her smile forced. The sitting room buzzed with laughter and talk of a promising union. Days later, as whisper travels so fast, one of the boys who had attended the introduction burst into the warehouse, his mouth too loose for his own good, grinned and shouted, "Romeo! Oga, don't unlock your Juliet!" The air erupted in laughter, and Brian grabbed Ray aside, his face worried. "Guy, what's this? I thought we had found the one. That night, Ray called Ada, his voice strained with anguish. Tell me it isn't true. I thought what we felt was love. What's this I'm hearing? On the other end, Ada broke down in sobs. Determined to resist, Ada approached her mother in the morning, pleading for intervention. Mama, please help me. I'm sorry, Mom. Please help me out of this. Ifeoma said all that because of the hatred he has for Ray. She cried. Mother, please. I know you can help me talk to Dad. Please. Ray is a good man struggling to survive. He doesn't have it all, but I know God will bless us. Her mother looked at her and walked away. Ada cried bitterly, and for weeks refused to eat and suddenly fell sick. Mrs. Ohami, who has been fed with lies from Ifeoma for days, couldn't stand the pain Ada felt. She sent for Ray. Days later, Ray got the invitation and happily went. Mrs. Ohami, on seeing the poor wretched boy on tattered clothes, screamed. What is this? Mrs. Ohami asked. How much do you want? I need you out of my daughter's life. Ray tried to profess the love he has for Ada. Mrs. Ohami replied, I do not know what you must have fed my daughter with. But you see this. It will not work. Ray, trying to explain to Ada's mom, was cut short as Mrs. Ohami clutched her chest and collapsed onto the floor. Chaos erupted as she was rushed to the hospital. The doctors, on seeing her critical condition, delivered verdict with grave faces. A delicate heart surgery was required. The Williams family panicked as the surgery amount was beyond their reach. Out of desperation, Mr. Ohami contacted his intending-in-law, asking for support. Mr. Obina leaned back in his chair, his face cold. No, he said flatly. I came to marry your daughter, not to foot your family bills. Chief, this money we are talking about is enough to get 2 trailers of Ecoplanet Unisum. After the surgery, we will continue. May the Lord be with you. With that, he excused himself and never called again, leaving the family in shock and despair. To Ada, his words were a knife that cut through every illusion of stability her father thought he had secured. Days passed as the doctors abandoned Mrs. Ohami, waiting for deposit before treatment will commence. Ray couldn't hide it anymore. He met the doctor and made subsequent arrangements for Mrs. Ohami to be transferred to his family hospital in Lagos. The next morning, the doctor handed the letter to Ada. Ada asked, where do we get the money to foot this expenses? The doctor replied, God will provide. Mrs. Ohami's surgery was to be done few hours after their arrival. Ifeoma and Ada became worried and so started making arrangement on how to sell their elder brother's building project they have been handling to foot the bill. Mr. Obina, on hearing the property was up for sale, arranged for proper documents to be signed in his name. Just as they were about to execute the plan, Ray entered with the cardiologist who will carry out the surgery on Mrs. Ohami. Mrs. Adeleke has practiced for years and remained one of the best surgeons the facility can boast of. While Obina waited for the property to be transferred in his name, Ray had quietly made every arrangement for Ada's mom. The surgery was successful. When Mrs. Ohami opened her eyes days later, tears filled her eyes. Reaching out, she gripped Ray's hand. My son, forgive me. I misjudged you. The news spread quickly. Ada's father, humbled and grateful, embraced Ray as his future son-in-law. Ifeoma wept, ashamed of her earlier as she bowed her head in apology. Mr. Obina later heard of the successful surgery and Ray's true identity. He was stunned into silence. For once, the proud businessman had no words. His arrogance had cost him everything, and the fact he tried buying the family's building kept him away from Mr. Ohami. Days later, in the warm glow of the Adeleke mansion, Ray knelt before Ada, his voice steady and his eyes full of love. Ada Ohami, will you marry me? She broke into tears of joy, whispering, yes. That evening, she joined the Adeleke family for dinner, where portraits of Ray's siblings adorned the walls. Ada, for the first time, learned that Ray, the youngest, had been entrusted with managing the Adeleke empire, yet he had chosen humility to test love. Ada wept openly. She was ashamed for ever doubting him, and grateful that he chose her despite the ill treatment from Ifeoma. Their love ended in grandeur and grace. Their wedding was beautiful. People gathered to celebrate with them. This story proves that humility and kindness can lead to unexpected blessings, and love built on truth will always outshine wealth. It teaches us never to judge people by their present situation, but the goodness of their heart. True love is about standing firm by people no matter what. To my amazing audience, what did you learn from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. If you love my story, please give it a thumbs up to let me know. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you wouldn't miss the next interesting upload. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next story.